Picture this. You're trying to build an apartment building in San Francisco. You've got the money, you've got the land, you've got architects who've designed buildings that won't fall down. Seems straightforward, right? Well, buckle up, because you're about to enter a bureaucratic nightmare that makes the DMV look like a well-oiled machine. First, you'll need to navigate the Planning Commission, where strangers will debate whether your building has the right neighborhood character. Then you'll face the Design Review Board, because apparently democracy means everyone gets to vote on what color your windows should be. After that, prepare for community meetings, where people will explain why their morning coffee tastes better without your building existing. Oh, and don't forget the Environmental Impact Review, where you'll need to study how your apartment building might affect the local pigeon migration patterns. Congratulations, you just signed up for a 5 to 10 year odyssey that would make Odysseus himself say, "Nah, I'll just live in my car." Meanwhile, in Berlin, someone just built an apartment building in 6 months. In Tokyo, they're breaking ground on housing projects that were approved faster than it takes most Americans to refinance their mortgage. And here's the kicker. Their buildings don't fall down either. They're not cutting corners or ignoring safety standards. They're just not treating every housing project like it needs to survive a trial by combat. So what's the difference? Why can Germany churn out housing like they're making pretzels, while American cities act like every apartment building is a potential war crime? The answer isn't what you think. It's not about greedy developers or labor shortages or the complexity of modern construction. It's about something much more boring and infinitely more maddening: the approval process itself. See, here's what nobody talks about when they're wringing their hands about the housing crisis. In most of America, even if you follow every single zoning rule, even if your building meets every safety code, even if you dot every regulatory I and cross every bureaucratic T, you still don't have the right to build. Instead, you have the right to ask permission. And asking permission in America has become an art form of delay, obstruction, and death by 1,000 meetings. By the way, my name is Patrick. If you like the sort of content I'm making here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps out a lot. Now back to the video. Let's break down how this works, because it's honestly impressive in its dysfunction. You want to build housing? Great. First stop, the Planning Commission. These are typically volunteer board members whose qualifications for deciding your city's housing future range from owns property nearby to has strong opinions about architecture. They'll review your project not just for compliance with zoning laws, oh no, that would be too simple, but for something called discretionary approval. This means they can reject your project because they don't like how it looks, or because someone complained about parking, or because Mercury is in retrograde. Who knows? But wait, there's more. After the Planning Commission, you might face a Design Review Board, because apparently we need a separate committee dedicated to arguing about building aesthetics. Then there's the Community Board, especially fun in New York City, where 59 different neighborhood boards get to weigh in on your project. Their power is technically advisory, which in government speak means they can't officially kill your project, but they can make your life miserable until you wish they could. And we're just getting started. Depending on where you're building, you might also need approval from the City Council, the Mayor's Office, the State Environmental Agency, the Transportation Department, and probably a partridge in a pear tree. Each agency has its own timeline, its own requirements, and its own creative interpretation of what constitutes a valid reason to hit the pause button on your project. But here's where it gets really special. At any point during this multi-year obstacle course, pretty much anyone can file a lawsuit to stop your project. In California, the state's Environmental Quality Act is so broad that neighbors have successfully sued to block apartment buildings on the grounds that they might cast shadows on a community garden. I'm not making this up. We're literally litigating sunshine as if it were a constitutional right. The result? Projects that should take months to approve routinely take years. And we're not talking about massive infrastructure projects or nuclear power plants. We're talking about regular apartment buildings and townhouses, the kind of basic housing that every functional city needs to, function. Now, let's hop over to Germany, where they've apparently figured out this whole building things concept. In Germany, if your project complies with the local land use plan and meets the building code, you get what's called ministerial approval. This means a bureaucrat in a government office checks your plans against a list of objective requirements, stamps approved, and sends you on your way. No hearings, no community input sessions. No design review boards debating the psychological impact of your window placement. Just rules, compliance, and approval. Wild concept, right? The German system works like this. Cities create detailed land use plans that specify what can be built where. These plans go through a public process up front with community input and environmental review. But once the plan is adopted, individual projects that comply with it get approved automatically. It's like having a dress code instead of requiring a fashion show for every outfit. And before you start worrying that this leads to ugly buildings falling down everywhere, consider this. Germany has some of the strictest building codes in the world. They have rigorous environmental standards, accessibility requirements, and safety regulations. They just enforce these through objective technical review instead of subjective neighborhood popularity contests. Japan takes this concept even further with a national zoning system that would make American local control advocates break out in hives. The Japanese have 12 use-based zoning categories, and here's the beautiful part. Most of them allow multifamily housing by right. That means in most urban areas of Japan, if you want to build apartments, you just need to comply with height limits, setback requirements, and building codes. No hearings, no neighbor approval, no years-long legal battles, just compliance and construction. The results speak for themselves. Tokyo, one of the world's largest metropolitan areas, has consistently added housing supply as its economy has grown. Rents in Tokyo are actually lower today than they were in the 1990s. Meanwhile, San Francisco has added jobs at 10 times the rate it's added housing, and everyone acts surprised that rent costs more than a small country's GDP. But the really maddening part isn't just that American cities are slow at approving housing, it's that this slowness is completely unnecessary. We're not dealing with some unavoidable trade-off between speed and safety, or efficiency and democracy. We're dealing with a system that has accidentally, or maybe not so accidentally, designed itself to prioritize process over results, consultation over construction, and delay over delivery. Think about what this actually means for regular people trying to live their lives. Every time a housing project gets delayed by 18 months because someone wants to study its impact on neighborhood character, that's 18 months of families paying higher rent while waiting for supply that should already exist. Every time a community board holds another meeting to discuss whether a building should be 4 stories or 5, that's another month of young adults living with roommates in their 30s because nothing else is affordable. And here's the really twisted part. Everyone involved in this system claims to support more housing. Ask any city council person, any planning commissioner, any community board member, and they'll tell you housing is desperately needed. They'll give you speeches about affordability and opportunity and the American dream. Then they'll vote to delay the next housing project for further review. This is what manufactured scarcity looks like. It's not that we can't build housing. We built plenty of it in the past, and other countries build plenty of it now. It's that we've created a system so perfectly calibrated to prevent construction that it's almost artistic in its dysfunction. We've built a machine designed to say no, and then we act shocked when it keeps saying no. The consequences ripple through everything. When housing is artificially scarce in cities where people want to live, those people either pay crushing rents or move to car-dependent suburbs where housing is allowed to exist. This creates longer commutes, more traffic, more pollution, and more sprawl. It pushes families away from job opportunities and good schools. It makes cities less diverse, less dynamic, and less accessible to anyone who wasn't already wealthy enough to buy in before prices went insane. And the generational impact is staggering. Previous generations could move to cities, find affordable apartments, and build careers without spending 70% of their income on rent. Today's young adults face a choice between crushing housing costs in opportunity-rich cities or affordable housing in places where good jobs are scarce. We've essentially created a system where geographic mobility, once a cornerstone of American economic opportunity, has become a luxury good. The saddest part is that fixing this isn't even that complicated. We know what works because we can see it working in other places. Create clear, objective rules for what can be built where. Allow projects that comply with those rules to get approved quickly and predictably. Reserve community input and environmental review for the planning stage, not the project approval stage. Stop treating every apartment building like it requires a congressional hearing. Some places are starting to figure this out. A few states have begun overriding local zoning to allow more housing by right. Some cities are streamlining their approval processes. But change is slow, partly because the current system benefits the people who already own property and have political influence, while the people who need more housing, renters, young families, newcomers to the city, have less political power. So next time someone tells you housing is expensive because of greedy developers or construction costs or labor shortages, remind them that other countries manage to build housing quickly and affordably without sacrificing safety or environmental protection. The difference isn't in our materials or our workers or our engineering standards. The difference is in our willingness to actually let housing get built. We've created a system where everyone agrees housing is needed, but almost nothing gets approved. Where every project must survive years of hearings, appeals, and lawsuits before anyone can so much as dig a foundation. Where the phrase affordable housing has become a political slogan that we chant while making sure housing stays expensive through regulatory strangulation. The American housing shortage isn't a mystery. It's not an accident. It's the predictable result of a system designed to prioritize delay over delivery, process over outcomes, and the preferences of existing residents over the needs of future ones. And until we're willing to admit that our approval process itself is the problem, we'll keep wondering why housing costs so much while doing everything in our power to make sure it stays that way. Thanks for sticking around to hear about America's incredible talent for making simple things complicated. If this resonated with you, or if you've got horror stories about housing approval processes in your city, drop them in the comments. And whatever city you're navigating out there, stay safe. Hey there! If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a comment telling me what you'd like to see covered next. This was Patrick, and as always, thanks for watching.